My guest today is Coach Olympic champions, 80 All-Americans, 14 national titles, but that's not what shaped him. What shaped him was the day he was brought to his knees and what he found on the other side of it. He'll tell you that gratitude crushes suffering and that there's no such thing as a quantum leap, only dogged persistence that, in the end, looks like one. This is Tom Ryan, head wrestling coach at Ohio State, national champion, two-time NCAA Coach of the Year, coach of Olympic gold medals Kyle Snyder, 80 All-Americans, 14 individual titles, and the author of Chosen Suffering. Big thanks to my guy, Jeff Gum. Shout out to my friend for the introduction. Coach, before we get into any of it, sports keeps evolving, events keep evolving, everything's bigger and better. Talk about one or two dual meets or venues where the atmosphere was just insane. You're like, what the heck is going on? What are we actually doing here? Because the fans and all the hoopla, pomp and circumstance, all the craziness that goes into a sporting event in wrestling.
Well, the NCAA championships, for people that don't follow college wrestling, are crazy. It's 125,000 tickets sold over a 3-day period. 2 years ago was one of the best duels I've ever, national champs I've ever seen. The reigning Olympic champion lost the last match of the night. Donald Trump was there. Elon Musk was there. I mean, the place was on, his whole staff was there. Wrestling is the sixth largest participation sport in this country. And at the college level, it's incredibly competitive. It's very hard to make it to this levels. I'd say the national championships, the Big Ten championships, dual meets are really big at Ohio State and other programs. We've had 16,500 people, watch us wrestle Iowa or Penn State or the team up north. So, it's a lot of fun.
I've seen pyrotechnics at Oklahoma State.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
something that's super awesome is Purdue is wrestling on an aircraft carrier this year with, I think, Citadel and someone else. Like, I'm a very patriotic person, and I'm a Purdue grad, and that just sounds outstanding. Now, I know that you started at Syracuse, followed your brother. You mentioned that in our prep. Then you walked on at Iowa. What was the welcome to Iowa moment? Holy shit, this is really for real? Talk about,
Yeah.
because you build things up in your head and you have a sense of what the future looks like, and then there's reality. Talk about that welcome to Iowa moment.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Syracuse, I was happy at Syracuse. I was living with my brother. He was 2 years older than me, as you said. I went there, he was there. Iowa never called. And I was happy there. But after my sophomore year, I just felt like I should really chase this childhood dream that I had, which was wrestling for Dan Gable. So I packed my car. And again, we're talking about, for your family, for your people watching, we're talking about a time when there was no internet. There were no cell phones. There were pay phones. I mean, if I want to be picked up from practice, it was 10 cents to up to a quarter to make a phone call, to call mom and dad, come and get me. It's time practice is over. So, right, it was a different time. Again, no cell phones, no internet. So Iowa was a pretty well kept secret for the most part. There wasn't, of course we knew they were elite. Dan Gable was there, in many people's opinions, up to this point, the greatest college wrestling coach of all time. And I had been to his summer camps every summer from 8th grade on. So I was around the greatness, and I knew that it's where I needed to go. So I packed my car, obviously called mom and dad and said, I'm going to leave, talked to my brother. They were all very supportive. And I just showed up out there. And the aha moment was I was sitting in the corner of the room, and Dan Gable came over and said, who are you? This was a hot summer day in Iowa. We're talking about probably June in Iowa. And he said, who are you? And I said, my name's Tom, and I want to wrestle for you. I want to transfer. I was at Syracuse. I want to wrestle for you. And he said to me, he did what he said, exactly what he said. He said, well, you're not going to get any better sitting there. Go wrestle these two guys. And they were the Steiner brothers, who I didn't know who they were. Again, there was no internet. I didn't know who these dudes were. I just knew they were smaller than me. They looked smaller than me, and I thought, "I'm gonna smoke these guys in front of Coach Gable." Well, little did I know they would both go on to be four-time All-Americans and national champions and Olympic alternates, and so the practice went well, for about at about the 45-minute mark, we were drilling, which is like practicing your moves. Um, and at the 45-minute mark, I started to get pretty tired because the tempo was so high. So as soon as I scored, they'd get up right away. They were in my face, just always in my face. And about the 60-minute mark, I was pretty tired, and Coach Gable blew his whistle and just basically said, "Time." And I thought, man, I mean, I'm tired. That was a heck of a workout. And he honestly, the next thing he said was, "Are you warm?" And I'm thinking, "Well, I was warm. I was warm a half hour ago. Like, what are you talking about?" Like I thought I
Yes.
was ready for this. So the aha moment was, and then these two brothers proceeded to beat me unmercifully. Unmercifully. It was a line in the sand moment. I think we all have them as human beings. And it was, should I turn back? Should I go back to Syracuse? I had done well there. I won the Easterns there. I was a national qualifier. I was 2-2 at nationals, but it wasn't what I wanted for my life. It wasn't enough. And I knew I needed to be around something far more, far more challenging. So I stayed and ultimately, made the team and helped the team win a couple national titles. And it really transformed me as a human being, but also obviously it created openings. Being under Gable created a lot of opportunity for me in the coaching space and the wrestling space.
I would think so. You're, like you said, around one of the best people of all time. In my book, I characterize athletes four different ways. One is a pretender, two's a college athlete, three's a pro, and the fourth level athlete I call the statue because at some point in time they actually build statues of people that make a big impact. And
Yeah,
I've never been to Iowa, but what I've read is that his statue of Coach Gable is that he is in this pose that represents stalling in wrestling. Like he was mad at people were stalling, I guess. And I've never
he
met him.
was. He was. Yes. This is a signal for stalling, like touchdown in
Right.
football, stalling in wrestling. And yes, he did not like stalling.
He did not stalling.
Mm.
All right. So, audience, a little bit more background on who we have here today. So, head coach, Ohio State Wrestling, since '06, came from Hofstra, coached there 94 to '06, 2015 NCAA national champ for the entire Ohio State team. Two-time NCAA Coach of the Year, coach gold medalist Kyle Snyder, always wanted to meet him. Logan Seibert, wanted to meet him too. 80 All-Americans, 14 individual titles. Assuming this is even up to date, it probably changes every few weeks. Played track, soccer, basketball, baseball, lacrosse, football, cross country, and wrestling. Narrowed down to wrestling and cross country. Eventually, it became wrestling. Author of Chosen Suffering, Becoming Elite in Life and Leadership. How did you narrow it down to wrestling and cross country, and how did you ultimately select wrestling?
It's a story of fails. It's a story of fails. That's how I found my way to wrestling. I would say that I don't know if any of you if you're a Denny's fan. Ever eaten at Denny's?
Oh, yeah, plenty of times.
Okay. 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 So how'd you end up at Denny's, right? It's kind of like, well, nothing else is open. Let's kind of hit Denny's, and go have some Denny's.
Heck
That's kind
yeah.
of how wrestling, right? That's kind of how wrestling went for me. I wasn't that big. I tried football, got ran over a bunch. Um, and ultimately, at the time, I was in seventh grade when I started wrestling, which isn't too late, but nowadays, some might consider that late. But I had, a pretty firm foundation in fitness from track and soccer and basketball. But probably my ultimate love was basketball. And in seventh grade, I got cut. We had, there were nine of us in the house, seven children total, mom and dad. And you go home and, back in the day, and you probably remember this, but, coaches didn't sit down and explain to you. They just, why you're not on the team. There was just a list on the wall of the locker room.
Yes.
And I went to the list and I wasn't on the list in seventh grade to make that basketball team. So I went home and said, Mom, I don't know what happened. I mean, Mr. O'Leary, who I love to this day, Mr. O'Leary, who was our phys ed teacher, but also basketball coach, seventh grade basketball coach, said, he cut me. So I went to see him. Mom never fought my battles for me. She was busy raising a family. So I went in the office the next day and said, Mr. O'Leary, did you make a mistake? My name's not on the list. Like I really thought I was going to make the team. And he said, you're just not good enough. You do, but you're aggressive. You foul a lot. And I think you should try wrestling. Well, I'm like, wrestling. Have you seen the singlet? These dudes, like the outfit, I'm not wearing no singlet. Well, I went home that night and my brother, who was starting to wrestle, said, you should wrestle. And I said no. And he said, you practice in shorts and a t-shirt. So anyway, I went to practice. And I can tell you, Jim, that the first day, the first practice, I knew was for me. Fell in love, immediate, instant love of the mano a mano, the aggression, the fitness, all the things. And of course, at the time in seventh grade, I weighed like 75 pounds. I wasn't a
Gotcha.
big kid. I mean, if I was your size, I might have played football or, it would have worked. But, when you're 75 pounds in seventh grade, and your coach tells you you've got 18-inch arms, 9 on one side and 9 on the other, you got to figure something out. So for me, it was, and it was no looking back. I mean, no looking back. And then, as I said, I played other sports. I played baseball, soccer, but by 10th grade, it was full speed ahead. I'm going to wrestle in college. I'm going to be a wrestler. So let me stick to things that help my cardiovascular system and help me to be tougher. And cross country was that. So it didn't hurt that the cross country coach lived across the street too. And his son was one of my best friends, who was a 409 miler in high school. I mean,
Gross.
he was a tough dude. So he would put notes in my mailbox. When you gonna run? When you gonna run? And finally, I ran. So yeah, that's how I got into wrestling.
Mm, that's awesome.
And what a road it's been.
For sure. I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out Jeff Gum, who made the introduction here. Love working with Jeff. He's an outstanding patriot and hero in a lot of ways. So thanks to Jeff, and Coach Mick said good things. So I want to make sure I give props there. One of the things you pointed out is that once you wrestled once, you never looked back because you loved it. And one of the last core values I added was enjoyment, because I thought, well, who really needs that? And I realized that to do all the hard, horrible things, you really got to kind of love what you're doing. And if you just kind of like it a lot and only love it a little, there's no way you're going to do the super, super hard things. So once you love something, it makes it a lot easier to do all the sacrifices. And when I've coached student athletes at my gym, bar none, it was the wrestlers that made a joke of whatever I was trying to install. Whenever I was trying to install mental toughness, the wrestlers made a joke of whatever I was doing. And my only assessment was they're so used to having their face smashed into a mat. Like how worried or upset can they have about a bar in their back or pushing a sled? Like they're at least your face isn't getting kicked in. So if that's the standard, everything I'm going to do in that gym, no air conditioning, it's 90 degrees, blah blah blah. I didn't care. Did not care. Sled relays, they're hopping up and down. They're thrilled to death. So it was always super, super fun. Now, I have down here in my notes that you want to beat your grandkids at wrestling their senior year in high school, and my math moves that out to 2038.
Yeah, that's a big bucket list dream, for
How's
me.
that? How's that training going?
Well, Rhett is 4, and he's built like a little tank. So I'm a little concerned right
Yeah,
now about what he could look like by the time he's senior, blemishing this plan of mine. But, I think, obviously, dreaming big and having written goals is just so important for us to keep us, even at the age I'm at now, right? I'm 57 years old. I'm coaching young people, and being around them obviously keeps you young. I mean, you got to have a written plan. What inspires you? What gets you up in the morning? What keeps you up late at night? And when I think of that, for me, I want to be around to witness the people that I love the most in the world, which are my grandchildren, my children and grandchildren, my family. I want to be around for them. And I want to make sure that I'm as healthy as I possibly can be um, for them. My grandfather was a really important figure in my life. Um, and I want to be that for my grandchildren. So, you stay healthy and you work out all the time so that when that time comes, when Rhett and I are going to square off, if he does wrestle, that I don't get embarrassed. And he can say, my pop can kick my butt,
right.
which would be pretty dang cool.
People don't they underestimate how important those little wins are over time, that compound interest effect. So that's going to put you in your late 60s, mid to late 60s. So one, it's written down. Two, it's articulated. Three, you told another person. So now there's accountability, right? And having the ability to make an impact is great for, or be intense and do something really well for a year is awesome, or 10 years is awesome, but do it in your 60s, in your 70s, in your 80s, that kind of impact, that takes consistent effort. So I absolutely love that. And I didn't get through all your books. It just came yesterday. And, but it splits your life down into essentially before Jesus and after. So for a coach or athlete who's never had that moment that you describe in your book, what changed and how you compete and lead?
Yeah. Well, at 34 years old, I guess I had thought that I'd answered the most important questions about life. What are you going to do with your life? What's your profession you're going to be? Who you're going to marry? How many children you're going to have? Right? These are all big, major questions in our lives that we've got to answer. What kind of, again, profession, marriage, who, how many children, lesser decisions. What kind of car am I going to buy? Why? What sneakers am I going to wear? What bed will I sleep in? All these decisions that we make. And for some reason, the single most important question that every human being needs to answer is how you got here. Where am I going? And there are options, and they are in disagreement. There are two options, and one is true and one is false. And I think that's really important to be reminded of, that they are not all true. There is a right and a wrong. And I'm not saying I'm right, but I got a pretty good feeling that I am. And so that's, how did we get here? Now, what caused me to think more deeply, rather than am I going to go to Iowa, transfer, and walk on or not? What got me to think more deeply about this question of where am I going? How did I get here? Was the tragic, sudden loss of my wife and I's 5-year-old son, who had a massive heart attack at the dinner table. He was healthy. There were no warning signs. We have 4 children. We had an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and Teague was 6, and my daughter Mackenzie was 3. And he got up from the table, was running around. My wife was chasing him. We were laughing. I mean, we were laughing, having a great night. It was President's Day, February 16, 2004. And then she picked him up. And I can tell you with complete accuracy that when she picked him up, something overwhelmed me. I was hit with something. I was watching her carry him, and I thought to myself, something's wrong. And something hit me. And she took him to the back of the house because he was voted to shower first. That's why he was up running around. He ran from the day we all voted he would shower first. We'd just come back from wrestling practice. They all came with me that day. And she got to the back of the room and she started screaming. So I ran to the back of the room and I grabbed him and I put him on the coffee table. And for 13 minutes, I tried to,
Bring it back.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for 13 minutes, I tried to bring him back. She called 911. And it took the ambulance about 14 minutes to get there. And when they walked in the house, um, he was unconscious, and they ran some tests, code blue, and they took him. We jumped in the car, my wife and I. By that time, the neighbor had come over to stay with our 3 other children, and we followed the ambulance to the hospital. And that evening, they pronounced him dead. And when I pulled in to the driveway from the hospital, my wife and we pulled back in. Of course, my children ran to the car, and they asked us. My son Jake asked a really fundamental question. As a 9-year-old, where's Teague? Teague, his name was Teague. And the pathetic thing, I would call it pathetic, was that I couldn't answer. I just knew he wouldn't be at the dinner table the next night, and we wouldn't see him again. And that rocked me, that I was unable to. And I could have told him the name of every supporter. I could have told him the tendencies of every guy on my team, the skills they hit, where their lesser strengths are, but I couldn't tell him where he was because I didn't know. So my mission in life became just basically Is God real or not? Is there a God? Is there a heaven or is there not? And I don't think that I sheepishly went about it. I think I explored. I looked at all the facts that I could on evolution. I looked at all the facts that I could on a savior, on a God or not. And the information at the end of a year was overwhelming that there's a God. So that's when I became a believer. And it's transformed me in many ways, obviously. I don't think people that knew me before I was 34 and a believer would have said, I did wrong by people, but I just have a different outlook on life now.
Hmm.
It's helped my coaching. It's helped my conversations with people that suffer and struggle. It's just, it's strengthened me. And ironically, Jim, I wrote the book called Chosen Suffering, but when I was wrestling, right? Wrestling never brought me to my knees. I lost in the national finals. I got beat up badly by those Steiner brothers that we talked about earlier. I got beat up in practice often, but it never brought me to my knees. Losing my son brought me to my knees. And the suffering, I never would have said college wrestling was filled with suffering. I loved it. Words like gratitude. Like I was always grateful. The guys that beat me up after they kicked my butt, although I was embarrassed, I was grateful that I was around somebody that didn't care how I was feeling, that didn't feel bad for me, and just
Sure.
beat me unmercifully, right? So gratitude crushes suffering. So I was just raised in a great home with great people, and I just remember always being grateful. So yeah,
It's hard to have multiple thoughts simultaneously in your head. Some would say it's impossible. It's really hard to have negative thoughts when you're thankful at the same time. And so one of the mental performance practices we instruct is journaling at night, reflecting on the wins and losses of the day, but being grateful before you go to bed. And it primes your subconscious to think, but also to be happy and grateful so that you relax, which then helps you get into your REM sleep faster, right? And
yeah,
so when you listen to someone sum all that up like Jocko Willink, when there's any kind of adversity and he sums it all up with good,
exactly.
he sums it
Right,
up with good because,
exactly.
right?
Good. That's it.
Because
It's all. Yeah.
what it does then is it puts you back in control. I'm no longer the victim. I'm sad. I'm upset. This is terrible. This is happening to me. No, good. I'm grateful this is happening because then you can decide to move forward. You now have control when you're grateful because you're choosing that and then you're choosing what next. And the title of almost all my speeches is now what? And it answers that question in that instance. Now what? So
That's so good, Jim. I mean, that's so powerful. Hopefully, yeah. I hit this tractor trailer full speed going into practice, April 23rd, 2004. He was parked on the highway in the right lane. It was 5:30 in the morning, no lights, no flares, no nothing. I came around the bend full speed, about 65 miles an hour, into the back of this tractor trailer. He was sleeping there for quite a while. And you know, the thinking, right, when you're healing through that, I mean, my legs were completely shredded. By the grace of God, I didn't break my neck, didn't bleed out. But, it was never why me. The why me stuff is long gone. It's like, what's next? God, what are you teaching me? What am I to learn from this? And the learning through it has been incredible. Even I was 54 when I hit this thing, uh, on this tractor trailer. But, it's never ending learning and God's just always teaching.
the uh, the biggest challenges or adversity in your life, will you probably look back on it and think, man, thank goodness that happened. I don't know if you had but you've come across Kyle Maynard at all.
Of course, I know Kyle, yeah.
So I had him on the show. Of course, it was Jeff Gum that introduced us. And at the time, if you listen to the episode, he was going through this period for about a year where he had to move back home with his parents because the migraines in his head were so painful and debilitating, right? And we're on video, and he's scratching his face with just his basically where his elbow, where his arm ends. And those that are listening don't know, his when he was born, his arm stopped growing at his knee, at his elbows, and his legs stopped growing at his knees. So he doesn't have full four appendages like everybody else. Anyways, he had overcome so much adversity, and now it's just a part of who he was. And his book is called No Excuses. So during that year of him having these migraines, and we're recording live on the show, and I said, man, thank God you were having those challenges for the last 20, 25 years, because now that you have this 1 year of migraines, you got to be like, well, this is just what's next. I can handle it. And he goes, boy, I hadn't thought about it. I said, well, you had all this adversity before. Like, aren't you just kind of just bored? Bored by
Right,
that?
right.
uh, You say there's no such thing as a quantum leap, only dogged persistence that looks like one. Where'd you learn that?
It's just life. I mean, I've just been around people that give so much uh, to what they want.
Mhm.
And on the outside, I think movies and, you can sit in a movie in an hour and 45 minutes and watch somebody's life unfold before you, and it can trick you into thinking that that's how it works. 10-minute abs, right? 10-minute abs. When I was, they were selling these 10-minute abs things, and it's like, well, hold on. What you didn't say is 10-minute abs every day for the next
Right,
3 years, not
right.
10-minute abs. So I think the reality of what it takes to be really elite, um, and grow and be the best you, it's the unseen, deliberate workouts when no one's watching. You just do it day after day after day after day, and you find beauty in the mundane. And you find value in the mundane, but you do it. Uh, on the outside, they would say, "Well, look, he's wow, so good." What they haven't seen is just often the years, right? The years of doing consistent little things really well. So in the outside world, it looks like it's this big quantum leap, but the reality is it's nothing of the sort. Quantum leaps don't really happen. It happens through dogged persistence day after day. Yeah.
If you go through Robert Greene's book on mastery,
Hmm.
he took like completely different people in different professions, and one's Da Vinci, and how smart he was with incorporating these oils into his painting. And what's not well known is that he spent a number of years working in the science and metallurgical field, essentially, working with metal and
Wow, I didn't know that.
and different chemicals, so that when he was mixing paint together, he would, oh well, shoot, that's not going to work because of this chemical. There's
Right.
all that stuff behind it that he was able
Yeah.
to put all that together. And it's like, well, shoot. And then so to the layperson, it's just human nature that when you see someone do something well, they're probably just born with it that way, or it it makes it easier for me to digest that you didn't have to work very hard, because then it's easier on my ego that, well, if I worked a little bit more, I could have done it. But it's not true. But it's not true. You gotta not only work hard. I could work really hard running around the table. You have to make some intelligent choices along the way. You can't just, there's not just
Right.
right. So there's a lot to it, and only those that really work up to that high level get it, because they're broken so many times on the way up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't explain what it was like those years at Iowa, right? It's just you can't talk into an understanding of what it was like. But when you're in the midst of it, it's beautiful and it's hard. But yeah,
Suffering is a choice and requires deep love. Living in reality is a must. How do you get an athlete to choose the hard thing and stay honest about where they really are? Choose the hard thing and be coached hard.
yeah. Well, obviously, lots of people want to be coached until they get coached. So there's a lot of communication, right?
Right, yeah. That
You
hurt.
said you want.
Shut up.
You said you wanted to be like. So I think open communication. There's open communication. What works best for each individual. I mean, when we had talked offline the other day, I mean, you shared some things with me that were really insightful, just the way you laid it out. Um, and it's just really about knowing your people, really knowing your people and how they work best. Because not everybody, like when I was on the wrestling mat, I didn't want to hear a word. I didn't, you didn't need to yell at me. You didn't need, just don't, just pretty much leave me alone when I was competing. It annoyed me if somebody would be yelling when I was like, I'm trying as hard as I can. I don't want your input during the match. Practice, extremely coachable, but during competition. So, my coaches knew just how I worked, right? How my brain was wired. So I think just really knowing your people, communicating with them, um, one-on-one meetings with them, spending time with them, and getting to really know what makes them tick and um, how to get the most out of them. But at the same point, when you like living in reality is just so incredibly important, and many people um, they don't live in reality, and when reality comes, they're not ready for it. Um, they're just not ready for the truth. Um, so you help. You help them. You walk through it with them.
They
Um,
say they say
yeah.
success leaves clues.
Mm.
Numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story either. And generations are different based on how the prior generation raised them. When you say you need to get to know the athlete, be more specific. How do you do that?
Yeah. So, well, one there's right. So one there's a general standard, right, that is non-negotiable. Like we do a mile and a half run. Because every, which is a strong word, every single stud I've been around
Mm-hmm.
as a competitor that
Yep.
I coached or I followed, they have certain things that their capacity that are just non-negotiable. So one is, you got to be able to run a mile and a half in under 9 minutes, right? Which seems pretty simple, but it's not for some. But so there's a running standard, and running, right? For me, running it's deeply embedded in my belief system because the 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 truth behind the belief system is there. The action is there, and there's proof to what my belief is. I've never coached somebody. My greatest wrestlers of all time, Jesse Mendez just won 2 national titles for Ohio State. 450. Logan Stieber, 450. Jay Jaggers, 5 minutes. Kyle Snyder, Olympic champion, 528 in the mile as a heavyweight. Tommy Rollins, a 518, 6'4", 230 pounds. Everyone, non-negotiable. There's a standard. So one, you've got to fit in. I'm not bending on the standard. But what I will do, right? But what we can talk about, there's different ways to skin the cat, and getting to know them is just being with them, listening, spending time with them, asking the right questions, um, uh, and then trusting them, and building trust with them. So and that's just done often, right, over time. And in the recruiting process, you don't have that much time, so you'll fall back on the record of the people you've been around. But in general, it does take time, and and I think that student athletes trust me and my staff, because, you know, we've been around people that have done exactly what they want. Um, and the evidence, as you said, success leaves clues. There's plenty of evidence in what they did and how they went about it. Journaling's a big deal. You brought it up earlier. Journaling. Kyle Snyder was journaling as a freshman coming in. And this guy was, as a young man, understood the power of writing.
Mm-hmm.
So get them to write, get them to speak and open up. And if Ken, they're from all different backgrounds. And, some in the house were told, I'm the dad, just can it.
Right.
And now you're trying to get them to open up. So you're unraveling a lot of things when you're dealing with 18-year-old men that are coming into your program. There's a lot behind the scenes that you try to get to know. But sometimes it reveals itself in the toughest moments. But that's where the magic is. I had one today after practice. I had a magic moment with one of my student athletes. I won't go into what it was, but you know, when they're hurting and they're down is when, they're fertile to listen and learn and grow.
I was even though I sold my my gym recently, and some other coaches took it over. I still help out with the student athletes and coaching. I'm coaching this week, and I had this high school girl, and it was an accessory, and the directive was 8 to 12 goblet squats, and the last set needs to be god awful, and I know what it looks like when it's god awful. So I'm going to be shocked if you get to 12 reps on a god awful goblet squat, because I know what that looks like and feels like. And in her last set, and this girl's coachable. If I say to do something, I'll do it. There's never any pushback, and she'll do whatever she can. But she's still learning, right? She's still learning about herself and what she can handle and what's capable. And she finishes her last set, and I go, "How many did you get there?" And she goes, 12. I said, "Looked like you could have kept going." And she's like, "Yeah, probably." And I was just like, and then her head just kind of went down.
Mhm.
I said, "Well, what's your weight?" And she told me. I said, "We're going to add 30%, and we're going to go
Mm.
again." And then
Wow.
I go, "We're going to go 8 to 12 reps." And she gets to 8, and I'm watching her. Her form is not breaking down, so she's not at risk. But her legs are shaking a little bit. And she still had some more reps. But she just stopped at 8 because that was the minimum. I said, "Well, you said 8 to 12. I got 8." I said, "Could you have done more?" She goes, "Yeah." "Then you still haven't quite learned all the way. So you want me to do the last 4 reps?" I said, "No, you're going to do 5 because you can do 4. And that fifth one should hopefully drive the lesson home." And
Right.
she finishes that fifth one, and her form still didn't break down, but it was, when I said god awful, like she's shaking on the way up. And I came over to her and I said, "I'm so happy you had this moment. I'm so happy for you. That way you can call it, so that when I'm dead and gone and you know what it's like to keep pushing, you
Yeah.
just
It's
you just
powerful stuff.
you just go."
I mean, right. And Jim, right. That's the essence of sport. You're supposed to, in this safe environment, learn, and then take it with you.
Yes.
For those that play sports their whole life and then they leave and none of the lessons or the things they should have taken, that's tragic.
Oh,
You got to bring it with you. Otherwise,
yeah.
for what?
What's the point?
So that's cool. That's a great story. Yeah.
Self discipline is a must to climb high. The world wants to define us, and we cannot let it. How do you teach young athletes to know themselves? That whole phrase, temet noske, know yourself, before the world does it for them. Everyone's saying you're this, you're that, you're black, you're white, you're Catholic, you're atheist, you're Democrat, you're Republican, you're American, you're English, you're a wrestler. You're not a really wrestler. I know I'm not a wrestler. A 5 minute mile. Oh, I don't think so. How do you get these kids to know who they really are? There's so much noise in the world. How do you get them to
Yeah. That's a
learn
big
about them?
deal.
That's a huge deal,
You know,
right?
yeah, it's a huge deal. I mean, obviously, wrestling, I mean, I would say like life is a martial art and it's about self mastery. It begins, right, with knowing yourself. And unlike, I think we're close to the same age, but unlike us, there was no social media.
Yeah.
I
Thank
didn't,
God.
I, you and I never fell in love with the likes. People fall in love with the likes. How many
They
likes
do.
did I get? How many
Right.
comments did I get? And you start to rely on the likes. And then what happens is when something goes wrong and there's no likes and there's hates, they crush you. They crush you because you're looking for something outside of yourself. And that's a dangerous place to live. And it happens. I mean, right, suicidal rates are higher than ever
Yes.
because we're allowing others to determine who we are. So it's just what we're doing now. It's a lot of communication. We have our guys write 3 things out. Their I love tos,
Hmm.
their I believes, and their I ams. This is what I am. And I think if you don't know those things, then to your point a second ago, well, you'll be labeled by everybody and you'll start to believe it over time. So you got to be really firm in what your love, what your I love tos are. Really firm in your I believes. What are your I believes? Like simple things like, I believe running is more about your mind than it is about your legs. Like just what are your I believes, and then what are your I ams? And it's a battle because we get them a short period of time, but they're on the internet and they're in the world a long time. Um, so it's a very important space to make sure that we're at least feeding our guys truth in the power of protecting your lens and your ears. Protect them at all costs. Like I got these earpieces and now I don't walk around with 2 in. but I walk around with one in most of the day, and not because I'm ever on the phone. I am on the phone, but mostly because I'm listening to certain music that fills the space that needs to be filled. Because if
Mhm.
I don't fill it with something positive, the world's plan will insert itself in my brain, and I will not. And you just can't let it happen. So we called it Ohio State wrestling being the landlord of your mind. You have the right to evict. You've got the right to allow things to stay, um, and you better be wise in picking those things. So, um, yeah, again, just about communication and laying it out in some ways that get them thinking. Mandatory quiet time, weekly meetings, no cell phones, talking to each other, communicating with each other, being open. And of course, openness starts with the coach, sharing things that he struggled with and not being someone that, hasn't struggled. I think people around you will be more likely to be um, transparent if you are. So, so that's how we do it. And it's where the magic is. You listen, they wrestle, 25, 30 times a year. But I think I've married maybe 15 to 20 of my student athletes. I'm an officiant, uh, which is not hard to be, but I am.
Okay.
So it's the deeper, it's the relationships that really make it worthwhile. There's
There
lots of
was
coaches, Jim. I'm sorry.
good. Finish.
I think there's lots of people, right? There's lots of people that are in coaching and their life falls apart. Their teams win and their lives fall apart. So that's where I believe's got to come into play, right? Like my family, there's nothing more important than my family. And then you got to live that. And then when one of my student athletes said, "It's my dad's birthday. We got practice. Can I go home?" Of course you go home. What are you talking about? It's your dad's birthday. My sister's struggling. This is happening. Because that's what I would do. I would miss practice for that stuff. However, if you're an elite athlete and you're leaving at 9 a.m. to go see your dad, at 7 a.m. you get up and you get your workout in. You don't miss it. You just live a different life, right? You understand responsibility and accountability. So yeah, I mean, the biggest tragedy, right, is success outside the home and extreme failure in it. That's tragic.
Number of points there that are worth emphasizing. You talked about sacrifice, like when I was telling you about doing that SEAL swim last year, and I was not, even though I got better capacity wise in the pool, I was then terrified in open water when you can't see, and like your face is in open water, like there's nothing to see there. You got to put your head up, and that's like holy cow. So I had a number of painful lessons, and then my coach had to work me through that, and then I had to constantly, and it's only warm enough to swim in these lakes from like early to mid June, and the swim isn't in August, so you got like 60 days to figure your life out. And
Right.
so my friends said, "Hey, come swim in my lake. I don't care." So my wife and I would go out there, and then it was one day a week, then it was multiple days a week, then it was longer durations, so you have enough of these rests, because it just, you could die when you're in this in this endeavor, right? So you can't
Well,
be.
there's sharks too, aren't there? Like that's
There
something
are
for me.
there's
Like
bull
you can't
sharks.
see it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there are bull sharks that come in from the salt water because it goes into the Hudson, and so
Yeah.
you can't be fucking around thinking that you're going to be okay. No, um, the trust piece is huge, and when you're vulnerable first, then people say, "Hey, that person, man, the coach didn't get killed for being vulnerable. Talk about how he messed up or this happened. It's probably going to be okay for me to be vulnerable too, right?" So it's everyone's, your brain is what, 70 to 80% negativity biased, and you're trying to protect your ego at all times. But if you create that space where you can, then maybe you got a shot, just like at old school when they're saying you're in the safety nest, right? It was a hysterical
Right.
comedy. I want to ask you some questions about skills. And the last point, I forgot to mention this. You mentioned the mile and a half run for studs, right? The correlation, one of the highest correlations for getting through Navy SEAL buds is the 4 mile time run, longer duration, longer levels of pain, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, and then so swimming, it does help. Wrestling was very good. Lacrosse is very good. But the 4 mile timed run, that I don't know the number. I don't know if it was a 6 minute mile or what, but whatever the standard was, if you hit that standard, you had a good shot. because
Right.
you're in pain for so much longer, you don't care anymore.
Right.
Um,
It qualified you to have a chance.
yes,
It's just
yes,
it's an entry. Like the
right.
mile and a half is an entry. We also have you gotta be able to squat twice your body weight, bench press 1.5 times your body weight, weighted pull-ups, 10 weighted pull-ups at 45 pounds, a percentage of your weight. So those are just general requirements just to have a have a
It gets you in
have
the
a
game.
chance. It
It
gets you in the
just
game. Gets you in the game.
yes. So when I talk about number of things is all these boxes that need to be checked for you to be awesome. And so a 2 times body weight squat checks the box. Do you really need to be 2.5 or 3 times? Maybe,
Exactly.
maybe not. So,
Exactly.
but I like squatting, so I might just stick with whatever I love. So I'm gonna keep squatting because that's cool.
Right.
But if I suck at single leg takedown, but well, fuck, man, I'm a 3 times body weight squatter. Like, yeah, well, sorry, pal. There's still gonna be a limiting factor, right?
Correct.
I got
Yes.
this awesome car, but one tire's flat. That doesn't
Right,
work.
exactly.
All right, so
Yeah.
skills. Skill is king. You row cardio and strength breakdown. So the statistic is, if you know this, in the NBA, the entire league shoots 76% from the free throw line all year long.
I didn't know that.
If the game is 5 points or less and 5 minutes or less, they shoot 63%. So fatigue and pressure.
Yeah.
It's the end of the game, and there's pressure, and their percentage across the league drops 13%. Right?
Wow, that's interesting stat.
When it all breaks down, what makes the ultra competitor? How do they still win? What's their process to still persevere when there's pressure and fatigue because they make cowards of everybody, right? How do they build that mindset?
Um, well, a bunch of ways. Um, Number 1, obviously, they're saying the Navy SEAL quote, right? You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. So you train in a very honest space. So that's number 1 is you're in you're very honest with yourself. It's like, well, how do I know how hard I can wrestle? Well, do it in practice. Try as hard as you can in practice. Practice teaches you the tempo. Like I know right now with the legs that I have, if I went out and tried to run a 7-minute mile, it's not happening. So if I went out in 7-minute mile pace, I mean, I have, my legs are just completely destroyed from the accident. So I know by my training what my capacity is. Uh, One, living in reality um, uh, is 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 a big deal. So, and then you asked, what was it? What was the general gist of the question? Was how do you
So
what?
when they're fatigued and broken, how do they still mentally focus and persevere and win?
Yeah. Well, one, I think a lot of the great ones I've been around. Of course, we all want to win, but we don't control winning.
Hmm.
Some might say you do control winning. I would argue that you don't control winning. In a distant way, you do, but you control things that you can control, and winning's not one of them. So well, you control your attitude, your effort, your skill level. Um, uh, there's plenty of things in your control: the decisions you make, the tactics you use, when you decide to do what, how good you are at risk assessment. If I don't need a 4-point move, um, and I only need 2 points, why would I pursue 4? um, in that moment. So there's a lot of just brain matter that goes into being really elite at the right moment, making the right decision, and you train that way. You train in a way that you know yourself incredibly well, and you stay within yourself. If I've got a great shot to one side, but my opponent is really good at defending that side, and I keep going to it, maybe I should try a side that I'm strong at and he's not so good at. So it's knowing yourself, knowing, having some idea of the tendencies of your opponent and where they can be beat. Um, um, uh, ultra competitors, quite honestly, ultra competitors don't fatigue at a level where their skill breaks down. It just does. It doesn't happen. I haven't seen it happen where you are at an incredibly high level. Um, you are used to by the way you train. You are used to being at a state of whatever that state is, 180 heart rate, 190 heart rate, and you can operate at that level. So, I've been around four-time national champions, three-time national champions, Olympic champions, world champions, and I've never, I've never seen them in a critical moment, um, fatigue, fatigue, something in their control, cause them to react in a way that they shouldn't have. They're prepared. They're prepared. I don't care how tough you are. Like when I went to the Iowa wrestling room that first day we talked about early on in our talk, I'm a tough person. Like I'm tough. There's no doubt about it. I know I'm tough. But those guys, I wasn't tough. I just wasn't prepared well enough. I needed to be under what you did to that strength, that girl. That's what we all need. We need someone to help us do, what we can't do alone. You need someone to help you push you through those moments. And within 90 days of 3 workouts a day, those guys never got me tired again. And if we had, you have them on they'll tell you what happened. Terry and Troy Steiner, Olympic coaches, national champions, amazing human beings, some of my greatest friends of this day. I respect the most. Never drank ever, ever. Animals, workaholics, great students, great people. But ultimately, we make up our mind that I will never succumb. And I grew up in a house that watched boxing. I watched marathons and I watched the Tour de France. Those are the events that in my house you watched. Because remember,
Painful.
there was no internet. So my
No.
frame of reference, even my thinking, my grandfather was a couple-time Golden Gloves champion. My frame of reference early on, my lens was attracted to tough things. That's all I watched. Tough people. And again, now you can watch 5,000 different sporting events on the internet. But at the time, I would sit and watch a marathon, 2 hours and 20 minutes. I'd sit on my couch and watch the whole race. And my favorite part of the race, what do you think?
I'm guessing it's at the end when people are dying.
The last 2 minutes.
Right.
The last 2 minutes was the last 2 miles, the last
Right.
3 or 4 miles. Incredible. The last 12 minutes was where the magic was.
Right.
And it's that grit and toughness. But, as you know and I know now, there's a willingness to suffer beyond what the normal person is willing to do for what they want. And I'll end with this. And I, not ironically at all, but when I got to know Jesus, if the story is true, is the ultimate level of suffering for what you love the most. So it falls right into line with, there's a parallel with what I learned my whole life, that he took the beating for the people he loved. And the correlation is simply, you will suffer, and I'm sure you have. You will choose to suffer, but things you love the most. It's that simple. If you love alcohol, you'll suffer for it. If you love porn, you'll suffer for it. There's nothing you wouldn't give up for it until you got to give it up. And then maybe you get some help. But good things and bad things, right? Chosen suffering. For me, chosen suffering was, about wrestling. Relatively good choices. But there's plenty of people in this world, right, that suffer over their choices, over things that make no sense to suffer over, but you can call it addicted, but you fall in love with it at some point. You chase the feeling. You chase whatever you're chasing. Um, you chase the willingness to not want to live in reality and live in a false world. And I'm not being judgmental at all because I'm just saying they choose that and then many fight their way back through it. And I've got lots of friends and leaders and coaches and people I know that came through the back end of it, and they're ridiculously amazing people. They've come through the back end and they've learned. The learning is incredible. But mostly we're talking about the suffering that is caused by good stuff.
Ideally. And some
Ideally,
people can also take working out and straining to a point that's not even healthy, right?
healthy, sure,
For
sure,
sure. Because then you're like I had people competing in my strongman events at my gym that never won. And if you won in my gym, then you can qualify for a regional event and then nationals, and then you can compete at the Arnold in Columbus, right? So it was like a minor league system that I was part of. And I got guys all juiced up on steroids that can't get out of my gym. I mean, they can't win my comp, let alone go to the regional one and then nationals,
Yeah,
and I hear, I'm going to
yeah,
be world's strongest man someday, and I'm like, yeah, it's not going to happen. The phrase I sum all that up with is you have to give up. You give up things that you really really like for the one or two things that you love, right?
yeah. And I heard not Urban Meyer, Nick Saban. His discipline quote is very similar to that. He says discipline is you giving something up you want now for something you want more later.
Later, yeah.
Later.
That whole delayed gratification in the DoorDash Amazon world is pretty tough when the whole psyche
Yeah,
is
right.
being is built that way. And that approach to getting athletes to win, even though the pressure and anxiety and fatigue is high. When people ask me that, they'll spin the same question and say, "Well, Jim, how do you do that?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to look at their mindset. What's their strengths, what their weaknesses. Their strengths are their number one strength is their competitive advantage. If I can move that up, that they're going to keep winning. Whatever their biggest weakness is, that's their weakest link, that's their limiting factor. That's how they get beat. I got to fix that so they quit getting beat and then give them a chance to win. But that's just on mindset. Like I could be a driven person and I still have no idea what a single leg takedown is. You still there's the
Yeah,
knowledge. So maybe you're driven, but you don't have the knowledge of the sport yet. Maybe you're driven
right,
and then you have the knowledge, but maybe you're kind of an asshole with everything comes out of your mouth. So no one will work with you. So you don't have any teammates that want to work with you, and you can't be
right.
great without great teammates, coaching teammates on a mat. So even the GAs like are important, right? So
Yeah,
can I get you better that way? And then there's the physical training, the nutrition, like, oh man, he trains hard, but he's always drinking. Or he trains hard, he never drinks, but he's always up late playing video games and he doesn't recover. So you got to go through all
yeah.
that.
You just want problem solving, right? I mean,
That's all.
you gotta be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
You gotta be a
Root
critical thinker.
root cause analysis. All right. Um, Snyder, Stiver, 14 national champs. When it's all said and done, what do you want the athletes that you built to carry along with them after wrestling?
Yeah. Um, Obviously, number one thing would be to find a reverence for the Lord. That's number one. That you're not alone in this, and that there's a Savior. That's probably number one. Um, yeah, and that anything's possible with an incredible belief and a desire to back it up with work. Dream big, dream big.
Okay.
Keep dreaming big. Yeah,
Love it. Uh, let's wrap up here. So when you're training, you said you still want to train. What do you listen to?
I listen to Christian rock.
Okay.
I got a morning group that we ride in the morning. Christian rock's jamming, and we all love.
What's a trip you and your wife could take that you've never taken yet?
Yeah, I mean Switzerland. I want to go to Switzerland and see the mountains. I want to see. I want Jasper. I want to go to Canada. Yeah.
I was in Jasper and Banff last year since I
Oh,
turned
Ben.
50.
Yeah. Really?
When I turned 50, my wife said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "I want to go to Banff and just
Damn, it's
be
on
in
my
the
list,
mountains."
buddy. How
What
was
I
it?
could, what I can tell you is this: over 10 days in multiple different locations, different national parks, in any direction that I looked, north, south, east, or west, at any time of day, in any kind of weather, the view was amazing.
Yeah, I'm all about the view, buddy. Suffer, climb the hill, climb the mountainside, get the view. Is the juice right?
Worth the
Worth the
squeeze.
squeeze, right?
There's a question I've been asking people more and more. What's a sporting event you've never attended that you would love to attend?
Probably. I mean, I'd probably say, World Cup. I mean, I've never attended. I love soccer. I've been to some soccer. It's been a big event, and then probably something in like a big rugby event overseas, something like that.
For me, it'd be Rugby
Yeah,
World Cup. Some with the All Blacks or Seven
yeah, the All
Nations.
Blacks. Yes, yes, that's it. Same.
In my gym, I had the haka written out on the wall, which is the All Blacks, pre pre-game chant that they do. So I had it written out in their language and English, just as an inspiration of, hey, people will call down to their spirit and try to make the most of themselves in this in this next endeavor. So, all right.
Great book.
Oh, Legacy by James Kerr. Yep. Well, favorite sport movie.
Rocky.
You have a book that you could recommend?
Book I could recommend. I mean, obviously Outliers is good. Um, Legacy is good. Well, yeah, I mean, I love The Case for Christ. I mean, that was the
Okay.
game-changing book for me. Yeah, The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. He wrote the forward in my book. If you grab my book, he wrote the forward in it. Ironically, I got to meet him, but his book, I was reading his book within weeks of my son passing because someone told me to read it. And his thinking, the way his mind thinks, was directly in line with mine, and that book's amazing.
I I haven't checked it out. I don't think. Is this the one where he looks at all different kinds of religions?
Said
Yes.
everything. His wife
Yeah.
becomes a Christian, and he
Yeah.
says, "You're a kook." They made a movie after it. He basically comes home. He's the top of Yale Law School. He's a writer for the Chicago Tribune.
Yes.
He's a genius. He's a brilliant man. He comes home. His wife's like, "Look, I'm hanging out with some Christian women." What got him was he saw the changes in her, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna look into this." At the end of this, so I'm gonna give up my work as a writer for the Tribune, and I'm gonna study. I'm gonna go around the world and study the foremost experts in the world and what they believe, and then see what happens from there. But
I,
he goes in as, "You're a kook, honey, and I'm gonna prove it."
yeah. Yes. But there's a minister, a pastor at my gym who ended up marrying my wife and me. It's our second go around, Brady Bunch. And but he
We
gave me
were
that.
to
Yeah, he gave me that book as well. And
really?
yeah, yeah,
Wow,
and
that's
yeah.
cool.
You got a hero for us, and it could be a real life person or it could be like, fictional, whatever.
Yeah, look, I got my mom. I got my mom is amazing. My grandfather, my dad. I got two dads. Like you, we were the Brady Bunch. It was Niners eventually, but Dan Gable for me, Jay Robinson. There's a bunch of people that really have touched me in my life in a way and taught me things that are, yeah.
What gifts? What gifts? Then you say, I think you wrote none. You don't. Is there any bad guy you
What
like?
gifts?
No,
Oh,
villain,
villain?
villain, like
Any villains?
Darth Vader, or like I like Hannibal Lecter because he's so driven and focused, man. My
Yeah, yeah.
God, like oh my
That was a
God, but
heck of a movie. I kind of did like Hannibal. He was pretty intense. Yeah, maybe the coach from Penn State, the wrestling coach from Penn State.
right?
He's a villain for
What's
me now.
gotta be um favorite lift?
Favorite lift, man. I like combo things. I like burpees with squat presses and things like that. I like stuff like that. Rope
Such a
pulls and ropes.
wrestler.
Yeah, yeah. What do you like? What do you like?
If I could pick like a few things,
Yeah,
heavy sled push.
love it.
Uh, one, you could be a complete idiot and get better physically with a sled push. Like you don't have to be smart.
Yeah, we got to talk offline about that. Okay, good. I want to hear I want to learn from you a bit on that. Okay.
Um, Back squat because there's always one that scared me the most. And I was a two times body weight squatter at 300 pounds and strongman. So, but I was always terrified. But I always, maybe honest. Atlas stones and any kind of log or overhead press. Anything that's like, like picking up the Husafell stone, something, or
Uh-huh.
the Denny stones, whereas or the any kind of manhood stone, where hey, you are a man
Yeah,
in the BB
yeah,
family if you pick up the BB stone. So
yeah.
anything like that,
Heavy ball cleans
yeah,
lifts. I love those.
love those.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got a quote for us?
Mm, quote. Um,
There's millions of them.
Millions. I don't know. I like the one you said earlier. Is one of my favorites. There's no such thing as quantum leap. It's dogged persistence, but it reveals itself. It looks like it's quantum leap, but it's not. Um, yeah.
Whenever I hear stories of tragedy, I always think of the one James, be thankful for their struggle, for it creates perseverance, and then and brings you closer to God. So when I heard that about Teague, that's I'm trained to be thankful for the struggle, for it creates perseverance, and which it did.
Yeah, it's like Timothy, right? 2 Timothy 1:7, where God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of love and power and self-control. I
Yeah.
love 2 Timothy one
Mm.
seven.
Where can people find you online?
Can they find me? I'm Buckeye158 on Instagram and X. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. A lot of recruiting and learning about student athletes that you're recruiting. You learn a lot about them and who they follow, what they're posting, what they're liking, who they're following, as much as what they're posting.
Sure. Absolutely. Um, Man, Tom, thank you for the gift, and it's very humbling that you spent the time and the wisdom on me and others, just based on a recommendation. So I'm very, very grateful. For those that want to reach out to us, do that. Continue to do that. info@athlete-builder.com. Hit me up for our assessment test, which is exhaustive to figure out what the weak link is in your athlete. Tom, man, thanks again. Loved every minute. I was very excited about this, and man, I really, really loved it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be with you, man. Come out and catch a Buckeye match. We'll put you in the corner.
Yes, will do.
We'll put you in the corner. So get that schedule and you tell me what date works for you, and you'll be the honorary coach of the night.
No shit.
And we'll have you share some stuff with our guys. Maybe you come in the day before and you can watch what we're doing and make some recommendations for us. You obviously know what you're doing from a strength standpoint.
Deal.
All right. All right,
I'm,
buddy.
I'm
Thanks
gonna
a lot.
drag my wife. All right, hang on here
All
for a
right.
minute. All right, we'll see
Yes,
you.
sir.